On September 2nd, 1998 in Poughkeepsie, New York, the green house on 99 Fulton Avenue, which belonged to McKinley and Paulette Francois, was just like any other house on the block, although it looked slightly run down. But everyone in the neighborhood knew about the house, especially the awful smell permeating from it, as police got a tip from Christine Sala, a sex worker who barely survived an attack by 6'4", 350-pound Kendall Francois the previous night. What they found inside the house that he shared with his family would turn the stomachs of the entire community. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Kendall Francois was born on July 26, 1971, one of 4 children to Paulette and McKinley Francois. He was the only boy as he had 3 sisters, Raquel, Aubrey, and Kirsten. He was easily the biggest of his 4 siblings, reaching 6'4" and weighing 250 pounds as a freshman in high school. Due to his large stature, he was a good football player in high school, but after graduating in 1989, he decided to join the Army, going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic training and then being deployed to Honolulu, Hawaii. However, he couldn't keep his weight under control, so he was discharged from the Army in 1994. After returning to his parents' house, he enrolled at Dutchess County Community College, pursuing a liberal arts degree, but he would take classes on and off until 1998. In 1996, he got a job at the same middle school he went to as a child, Arlington Middle, where he worked as a janitor, then a school monitor. Teachers would complain that he displayed inappropriate behaviors towards the female students. He would touch their hair and tell them sexual jokes. The kids called him Stinky because he had bad hygiene and a horrible body odor. He secretly had an intense disdain for prostitutes, although he frequently used their services, and in October 1996, he would begin his murder spree. On October 24th, 1996, Kendall picked up 30-year-old prostitute Wende Myers and took her back to his house. Francois and Myers had gotten together many times in the past. However, she stole his money without having sex with him on 2 occasions and had even given him HIV on another occasion. He was at the end of his rope with her. They had sex at his house until he snapped and choked her, breaking her hyoid bone in the process. In his confession, he said she fought hard and wouldn't die. After she fell unconscious, he took her back to his bathroom and drowned her in the bathtub, placing her lifeless body in the attic. Her boyfriend reported her missing 2 days later. A month later, on November 29th, Kendall brought home another woman, 29-year-old Gina Barone. She had gotten into a fight with her boyfriend Richie and she exited the car. Assuming she needed time to cool down, he returned to get her, but she was gone. She was in Kendall's car. Kendall would say that she was in a bad mood, complaining about his weight and that he was taking too long to finish. This annoyed him, so he choked her until she passed out so she would be quiet. After she regained consciousness, he strangled her again and put her body in the trunk of his car and drove back to his house, leaving her body under a mattress for 3 months before placing her in the attic. Richie and Gina's mother, Patricia, became concerned for her whereabouts and filed a missing persons report the next month. Bill Segrist was the newly appointed head of the City of Poughkeepsie Police Department Detective Division. He knew his way around the area and he knew the girls that walked the streets. He felt like the disappearances of Wende Myers and Gina Barone were really suspicious. They set up surveillance and talked to the girls in the area, but nothing helpful came up. A month later, 47-year-old Kathleen Hurley disappeared. There were now 3 missing prostitutes in the area. They were all short and slender white women with blue eyes and brown hair. The police reached out to the NRU, or the Neighborhood Recovery Unit, which was a narcotic unit full of confidential informants, drug dealers, convicted criminals, prostitutes, and other street dwellers. The police reached out to the girls in order to report any customers who had been violent with them. Kendall's name came up multiple times. There were no bodies or no substantial evidence to go off of, and the department was working under a tight budget. And the community as a whole wasn't really concerned, as this was only happening to sex workers, like it usually is. Police even put a wire on a sex worker named Katina Newmaster. She was actually helping the police with multiple cases and they kept a close eye on her. Despite Francois' name popping up multiple times, more evidence was needed to prove he was guilty. They only wanted Newmaster to talk to Kendall. They didn't want her to get in the car with him, but she didn't listen. In November 1997, 31-year-old Catherine Marsh was reported missing by her mom, who hadn't heard from her since November. All of her clothes and personal items were still at her apartment. As the trail got cold, The FBI was contacted, but due to the lack of a crime scene and the heavy caseload they had already undertaken, they couldn't help. Lieutenant Segrist stated, "We have no evidence of criminality, but they were all convinced that something was amiss." Despite Francois still being on their radar, he wasn't prioritized as a suspect because the police assumed that the killer was a white man. It's statistically rare for a black man to be a serial killer, and it's even more rare for serial killers to kill outside of their race. The police had a number of suspects, with Gina Barone's boyfriend Richie being a suspect for a bit because he had an extensive police record including violence against women. Another man was looked into, but he was in police custody when the first 3 women disappeared. On October 9th, 1997, 27-year-old Michelle Eason was reported missing. That same month, Mary Hilly Giacone was reported missing by her father, having last being seen in February. The public assumed that the police weren't doing their jobs, assuming that they weren't looking for them because they were sex workers. Lieutenant Segrist told the Albany Times-Union, "These girls don't have set schedules. It took time for the families to realize something was wrong, and then they even thought for a while that they might turn up." As lead after lead went nowhere, one thing remained consistent. Kendall Francois was always considered a suspect, so the police began surveillance on him in January 1998, and they got a feel for his daily routine. He would drop his mom off to work in the morning, then he would go downtown and pick up a girl. The police stopped him after he dropped off his mom and asked him to answer some questions down at the station. Kendall remained calm throughout the interview, leaving the police with nothing to go on. At the end, they mentioned a complaint from a woman claiming that Francois had attacked her with a knife. He responded by saying, "No, I didn't attack her with a knife. It was a nail file. You're welcome to come see." They didn't have a search warrant for his property, so they were excited to get an invitation. However, only one detective, Detective Skip Manane, was allowed inside. He had to tread carefully through the house as Francois led him to the bedroom. The detective said the house was disgusting, as there were no doors on the cabinets, dishes overflowing in the sink, roaches and maggots crawling all over the house, and piles of clothes strewn everywhere. The stench was unbelievable, but there was no evidence of criminal activity. Yet. As they got to the bedroom, Francois couldn't find the nail file and he asked the detective to leave. He was not allowed to enter any of the other rooms in the house. The detective tried to cut in front of Francois and walk down the stairs into the basement, but Kendall grabbed him by the collar and said, "That's not the way out." The detectives left, and they had nothing to go on. Later that month, Francois was arrested for assaulting a different sex worker. The woman he attacked was scared to make the report and press charges, but she did. She told the police that Francois had picked her up on Cannon Street in Poughkeepsie and taken her back to his house. In the second floor bedroom, her and Francois got into an argument over money, and he punched her in the face. He knocked her on the bed and climbed on top of her and began strangling her. She agreed to have sex with him in an attempt to save her life. Once he was done, he took her back to Cannon Street. Kendall pleaded guilty to third-degree assault in May, and he only served 15 days in jail. Like literally almost killing a woman in 15 days. Okay. After being released, 51-year-old Sandra Jean French was reported missing in Dover, a town 20 miles east of Poughkeepsie. On June 15th, her car was found abandoned 3 blocks from Kendall's home. One source stated that Kendall had left her body on his bed while he got dressed and went to one of his college classes. A secret task force was created in July 1998. It involved 2 investigators from the city of Poughkeepsie, 1 detective from the town of Poughkeepsie, 1 investigator from New York State Police, and was commanded by Sergeant Michael Horkin from the city of Poughkeepsie. It was not advertised to the public. A fellow sex worker told the reporter on July 26, 1998, "We're lowlifes. That's what it comes down to. People don't care that we're missing because they think we don't belong in the streets in the first place. It's not just the police, it's the community." The public wasn't aware of all the steps the police and the authorities were taking to solve these disappearances. They had been working on this case for 22 months with over thousands of hours of work. On August 26th, after repeated warnings from the police not to get in Francois' car, Katina Newmaster got in and was never seen again. On September 1st, 1998, the police set up a roadblock to stop cars and hand out flyers about Katina when they spotted Kendall speeding away in his white Toyota Camry, with one of the customers at the local gas station telling them that Christine Sala had been attacked. 8:30 that morning, she was being strangled by Kendall Francois, who dwarfed her in size, but she fought with every ounce of strength in her body and convinced him to let her go. After he was arrested, Francois admitted to Christine's assault. Detectives already had a search warrant and were on the way to his house. Kendall confessed everything to the police. He asked to see pictures of missing women, and when they brought in the photos, he went through them like you would a family photo album. He flipped through the pages nonchalantly, seeing a girl he knew, putting it aside and saying, "I killed her," flipping it to the next page. Killed her. A couple more flips through the pages. Killed her. Flip. Killed her. A few more pages later. Killed her. He would eventually be charged with just the murder of Katina Newmaster at the time. Patricia Barone, Gina Barone's mother, said to the Albany Times, "If they find one of them, they'll find all of them, I'm sure of that." She wouldn't know how correct she was. On September 2nd, 1998, by midnight, the 4 police departments involved in this case, as well as the district attorney, EMS, crime scene investigators, and eventually the media and neighbors, descended upon the 2-story green colonial house at 99 Fulton Avenue. The entire community knew about the house, mainly because of the nauseating smell that emanated from the house. Detectives let Kendall's family know that they were going to enter the home and the family would have to leave. The Francois family was taken to the police station for questioning. Photos were taken at night by the detectives, but they were forced to wait until the morning as the horrible condition of the house made it hard for them to maneuver through it. It was once reported again that the house was full of garbage. It was on every inch of the floor, along with the furniture. It was noted that clothes were also piled up and covering the floor as well. Sheets were on the windows instead of curtains, and the kitchen was covered in rotting food, old newspapers, broken furniture, and still more garbage. It was reported that there were syringes laying out, maggots in the sinks, and Francois' younger sister Kirsten slept right below maggot casings that were dropping from the ceiling. Roaches and rats crawled all over the house. The smell was overbearing, permeating every inch of the residence, and began to seep out into the street, causing many of the bystanders to gag and vomit. One of the detectives noted that in all the years he'd been a detective, he had never seen anything like the Francois house and the wretched living conditions. The total crime scene investigation would end up taking almost a month. Whenever his parents would mention the smell of dead bodies, Francois would tell them that there is a dead raccoon he couldn't find. So you're telling me your son tells you there's a dead raccoon in the house and you don't call animal control or the exterminator? You just took his word for it. But okay. The authorities entering the house had to gear up in hazmat suits and gas masks. The investigation discovered 3 bodies wrapped in plastic in the attic by 3 p.m. It appeared that he had begun to dismember them. The district attorney, William Grady, told the media that showed up, based on what the suspect told us, the 8 bodies are inside that house. The 4th body was found in a kiddie pool. The 5th body was found in a can in the attic. Over the next 5 days, the police found 3 more bodies in the house. Most of the bodies were well into the stages of decay. One of the investigators told the newspaper on September 3rd, it was a nightmare. When the cops went to the green aluminum-sided house on 99 Fulton Avenue, they were nearly bowled over by the stench of rotting flesh. The first body to be identified was Katina Newmaster, then Gina Barone, then Sandra Jean French, Catherine Marsh, Wendy Myers, Kathleen Hurley, and finally Mary Giacone. While the police expected to find the body of Michelle Eason, they instead found the body of 34-year-old Audrey Pugilish. She had never been reported missing. Nobody but Francois knows how she got in the house, and he wasn't talking. Eason's body was never found, so police assumed that she might not have been one of his victims. After the bodies were discovered, Kendall's parents pleaded for their privacy in the media and neighbors, saying through their attorney, "We find ourselves plagued with unimaginable circumstances. Our youngest son is suspected of committing grave offenses from which his life hangs in the balance. We have literally lost everything, been dispossessed of our home, and cast into the street with only the clothes on our backs. The family requests that under these extraordinary circumstances, the public and media respect only the 2 items we have now, our privacy and our personal respect." Okay. Kendall was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder, 8 counts of second-degree murder, and 1 count of attempted assault on Christine Sala. Francois was seen laughing in the courtroom while the families were giving their victim impact statements. On August 11, 2000, Francois was sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole and was placed in Attica Correctional Facility. Journalist Claudia Rowe began speaking with Francois over a period of 4 years, using his statements to write her book called The Spider and the Fly, a reporter, a serial killer, and the meaning of murder. He told Rowe that he would reveal his secrets if she shared a photo of herself and intimate details of her sex life. All of it had to be laid out in a precise number of single-spaced pages. She realized that Kendall was trying to manipulate her and held her ground. He would tell Rowe killing seemed easier than getting in a relationship. He also gloated that if he hadn't confessed, I could have kept going. it would have gone on and on and on, and they would never have found a thing. So when asked why he confessed if he was so untouchable, Francois said, "It just came to me when I was sitting there by myself." First of all, you were a suspect the entire investigation. You let multiple women go that reported to the police on you. You were not untouchable. I don't know what he thinks he's talking about. On her final meeting with Francois, he told her, "I was thinking, I want to throw you down on this table and F your brains out." On September 11, 2014, he died of natural causes in prison at the age of 43. Reading through this case really just confused me because I'm thinking to myself, how do you live in the house with this guy? And how do you not smell the odor of 8 decomposing bodies in your house? Like, maybe it was because they had become nose blind to how terrible the living conditions in the house were already. Like, if you're living in a house with old dirty underwear or dirty dishes, old clothes, just in squalor, maybe the smell, maybe that covers up the smell of dead bodies, but there's no way. You've never seen him walk in with any of these women and they never come out? Like, you don't hear anything? Like, I don't know. This whole case was disgusting, bro. But, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this case. This is really a case that doesn't get talked about that much outside of Poughkeepsie, really. But thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed that. Subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Also, don't forget to turn on my post notifications. But thank you. I'm out. Peace.